It's a great honor and privilege to introduce Shoah Halberstadt, and your maiden name was Wurzmann, and you were born in Milan, in Italy, and we're here in your beautiful apartment in Golders Green. And I've known your family in Yerushalayim for many, many years. It's the greatest honor and a privilege to know your family. Could you tell us a little bit about your origins and your family, and how you landed up in England?
Yeah, I'll keep it short. Both my parents are from Germany. We're from Germany proper. But they got married on the 1st of January 1921.
Where, in Germany?
They got married in Germany, but my father was already working in Italy then.
Where in Germany did they get married?
My mother came from Cologne, and my father came from a small place in Bavaria, and called Stockheim. And my father was an agent for a Jewish metal company in Italy. So, and they got married, what did I say? On the 1st of January 21. And we lived in Milan. They lived in Milan then, because he was the agent for that company. And I was born in Milan in 1931. In Milan there wasn't a Jewish community in those days, nothing to speak of. And the kosher meat came from Trieste. Often it came too late to kosher, couldn't kosher it anymore. And the dry goods, they went to Lugano to buy kosher cheese, anything that you needed kosher in dry goods. My mother, there was no mikveh in those days in Milan.
No mikveh. Was there a bake
So every month she went again on the train to Lugano, to the mikveh. It was a day's outing. And one day the guard on the train got very suspicious. He saw this young lady every month. She's on the train, she must be smuggling. What's she doing on the train every month? That's how they lived. And when I was little, there was no Jewish school there yet.
Was there a kehillah? Was there a shul?
Yeah, there was a shul. I remember my brother's bar mitzvahs, but I was 6, when we left. I don't know. There must have been a shul. I don't think. I remember shul later, not when I lived there, when I visited my parents. I'll tell you, they went back again. Anyway, I'll try and keep it short because
there's no whatever you want.
So where was I?
So
the dry goods came from. They didn't come. They went to Lugano to buy. If ever there was no kosher restaurant yet. So whenever somebody came, a visitor from someone wanted to eat kosher, my mother gave them not as a business, as a favor. And there was no Jewish school. We went to the local school. There was school on Shabbos.
And you had to go?
We had to go. So our help took us to school. She carried the satchel for us. And summer holidays
when you were at school, you didn't, on Shabbos, you didn't have to write?
No, they excused us from writing. School holidays in those times in Italy were 4 months. Tell that the mothers today. So what did my parents do? We were 4 children. What did my parents? I'm the youngest. I'm the last one left. What did my parents do? They rented a cottage in the country. My mother was with us there, and my father came for Shabbos. And while we were there, still, Mussolini decreed Jewish children are not allowed to go to school anymore. And that was a red flag for my father. He said, we are not staying here, we are leaving. Within 2 weeks, he gave up his job, everything was left. I mean, I can still see the piles at the end of the corridor. Thing that they didn't know where they were going, so they packed a lift with essentials of the things they would need. And we left Milan. That's where it starts, the story. We left Milan on Erev Rosh Hashanah.
Erev Rosh Hashanah.
And I can still see my mother. I still see her crying. Do we have to go on Erev Rosh Hashanah? My father said, yes, we are not staying here. And we went to Locarno. There was a kosher hotel in Locarno. Locarno.
Was this in what year? This was was it in 39?
Pardon? That was 38.
Still in 38?
That was 38. Rosh Hashanah 38. But to me, the most important point of all this story is Motzei Rosh Hashanah. Another family from Milan wanted to get into Switzerland. They didn't let them in anymore. My father always had foresight. He was a very wise man. He always had foresight. They didn't let them in. But so we were in Switzerland over Yom Tov, and then my father also said, what do we do now? He left Italy within 2 weeks, literally. And what do we do? We were 4 children. What do we do now? He didn't know where to go next. The Swiss wouldn't let you stay. So he applied for whatever you call it. Today you would call it, I don't know what, permission, I say, either to America or to Palestine. And he said, whatever comes first, that's where we go.
And where did you go in Switzerland when you crossed the border?
To Locarno, I think. I think the kosher hotel was owned by family Khan, and there were other refugees like us there. So we were 4 kids. He had to look after us. So he applied. He rented the flat, and we till he got permission. I tell you where to go. We got permission to go to Palestine. That came first. We were there 3 months. He had to look after us for 3 months. And I say that in brackets. I keep on telling my older grandchildren. I reiterate over and over again. It only occurred to me in later years, in those days parents didn't say much to children, not like today, that the kids know more than the parents. He must have had savings. He couldn't have done it because in the end we got to Palestine. Till he established himself, he had to look after us. He must have had savings. Without savings, he couldn't have done it. And today's generation, I've got a feeling they often spend more than they've got, thanks to credit cards.
And do you remember coming on the ship to Eretz Israel?
Yeah. Of course I remember. So we were 3 months in Switzerland. We went to school there also. And then we got permission to go to Palestine. And we went to Marseille. We got the ship in Marseille. And we went to Palestine. Again in brackets, on the way, we passed the south of Italy. There is, actually it erupted not long ago, there is a volcano, Stromboli, and it erupted. I remember that my parents woke me up in the night. I should come. What a sight! I'll never forget it. And I must have been, in those days, I must have been a holy little girl, because I asked my parents apparently which rocham makes. Anyway, then we got to Palestine. And again, what should I tell you from there?
Where did you stay when you came to? I must just tell the listeners.
Again, you come with 4 children. You have nowhere to go. We stayed like in a small boarding house, not boarding house, like a small hotel.
Where was it? In
Tel Aviv.
In Tel
Aviv. And then father rented a flat, and all my education was in Israel, in Palestine.
It was under the British
I went to primary
mandate.
school and secondary school and teachers training college.
All in
Then in 48 it became Israel,
yeah.
you know.
And was it a religious area in Tel Aviv? It was
I went to a religious school, yes.
What was the name of the school? Do you remember?
The primary school was Talpiot. There's a secondary school, the Moria, Gymnasia Moria. And it was 100% from the headmaster was friends of my parents from Germany, Rabbi Ochs, his name was.
And you learned Hebrew?
And I enjoyed my education.
You learned Hebrew easily?
No. My parents gave up. I did not open my mouth for 8 months.
Really?
For 8 months. But once I started, I was fluent. But I didn't speak, no. I didn't speak for 8 months.
And how were the conditions? Because it was still under very difficult. There was riots going on. It was just before the independence. There was a lot. It wasn't. When you came there, was it very difficult?
When I came to
Tel Aviv,
what? From which point of view?
Food-wise, and the tension with there were Arab riots going on.
The war was during the war, wasn't it? Yeah, funny you ask, because there was less food and less variety of food than they had here in England. There was, you're right. And in school, there was even a shortage of eggs. School children got 1 egg in 3 weeks. And my father donated blood at the Magen David Adom. So every time he donated blood, he got an egg. And I remember my mother hoarding the eggs when it came to nearer to Pesach. She should have some more eggs for Pesach. Right? For the cooking and Pesach.
Did you have any mishpacha in Eretz Israel at that time?
Today?
At that time? Any extended family? Or?
No.
And what did your father do, work-wise, when he came to Eretz Israel?
In Italy, as I told you, he was the agent for a Jewish metal company. In Eretz Israel, he ended up in the diamond business, which he hated. He became the president of the lodge, even of the diamond lodge, but it wasn't his line. But he became the president, and he was in diamond. And at that time, I mean, I don't know which years you're
no, when you first arrived, when you first came.
For 3 months, I don't know for how long, he didn't do anything till he found a parnassah. Then he got into the diamonds.
And then the war, you hear about the war starting in September 39, and you were in Tel Aviv.
We were in Tel Aviv. And I remember again, I mean, I was young still, I remember again that Tel Aviv was bombed twice by the German. And I remember standing at the window, the bedroom window, seeing at the other end of Tel Aviv the smoke from the bombs going up. And the Germans were very near. They were already El Main or something. And we didn't know what we were going to do. Where do we go if the Germans come to Palestine? We can't go to the Arab countries, we'll go in the water, in the sea.
And do you remember where you stayed in Tel Aviv, the address?
Yeah, I even remember when it was bombed by the Germans, there were no miklatim, there were no
shelters.
Didn't exist. And we lived on the 3rd floor under the roof. So my parents didn't want me to stay at home. I went to a friend who lived on the 1st floor and slept there. And when there was an air raid siren, or whatever you call it, because there was no miklat, we just went down then sat under the stairs somewhere. Anyway, when we came back, there was an unexploded bomb on the bed,
Oei,
which I would have slept in.
באמת, what a miracle.
Again, it started already those days, Mina Shamayim. It was an unexploded bomb on the bed.
Oei. And where did you stay in Tel Aviv? Do you remember the address?
Do you remember what?
Where you stayed?
The address? Yeah, Nachmani 57. Not only that, I mean, you're not recording everything.
It's so important.
Because the other day, my son here, Yossi, I don't know why we were talking, he put on Modern Technology the address, our address in Milan, and the house is there, like it was.
Wow.
And I was so moved, I can't tell you how moved I was seeing it. I said, I must show it to my sister, but unfortunately she was lifted. She's not around anymore.
And the apartment where you stayed in Tel Aviv, is it also still around?
Yeah, that went built. It looks. The only difference is sign of the times. It was a block of flats, right, with an entrance with an arch to the backyard, bit like here, only much bigger. The only difference is that arch now has got doors. That's
But
modern
otherwise
times.
it's all
That's
the same.
modern times, you see.
Sure.
Security. What's interesting to me again, it wouldn't be interesting for anybody else, is my mother. Look, she made a big sacrifice. She was a young girl when she came to Italy, when she got married to be with my father. He obviously was comfortable. She had 2 full-time living helps. When one of them took us to school, for example. If you want to know, I'll tell you something about dentistry in that connection, but not to be videoed. Now, honestly, it may be interesting for you. Anyway, I remember their names exactly. One was Gisela, the other one was Angelina. In the block of flats was a non-Jewish girl, my age. We were very good friends. We played together a lot. I can't remember her name.
Wow. And how many years did you stay in Tel Aviv?
I left Tel Aviv. I arrived here on the 1st of January 53.
53.
I came as a teacher. I was sent by the Jewish agency as a teacher. And I told my parents I'm not getting married in England.
Mrs. Halberstadt, can I just ask, when you were in Eretz Israel during the war, so you saw the War of Independence, you witnessed everything. It's you were there for
the most exciting part, not just war, was also 48 when the Medina was declared.
So I would like to ask you before, did you go to Yerushalayim? Did you visit Yerushalayim when you came?
What, sort of as soon after we came?
When did you first go to Yerushalayim?
I can't remember when I first went to Jerusalem. Not immediately when we arrived.
But
I don't think so.
And was it very emotional when you saw Yerushalayim?
Oh yeah, it was very. For me, what I remember most is when we went the first time when we could go to the Kotel. I mean, I was already a bit older then. That was very moving. Wasn't like it is today. There wasn't this big plaza.
This was before the War of Independence, before the Jordanians occupied and took it over. So you went to the Kotel before Yerushalayim was divided, before the War of Independence. Yeah, it must have been, because after '67 they built the plaza and they. And did you have any other mishpacha in Eretz Israel, in Israel?
Well, often my father helped a sister of my mother and her husband, he helped them to come over. He also helped them to come they were from Germany to Milan also. And then they came to, they lived in Batiam.
And your father helped?
Yeah. I tell you, I'm not bragging. A lot comes back. We were modest, ordinary people. He was in Milan. He saw a Jewish young man in the street with his hands in his pocket. He must have got talking to him. He talked to him. He was someone from Israel, and he didn't have enough money to go back to Palestine still. Must have been still Palestine. So my father also gave him some money to help him to get back to.
And
then, after the war, I can't tell you everything, you'll be here all day.
It's very good. This is so special.
Now I remember my grandmother was also in Milan, but she ended up in Switzerland in the Swiss did the minimum. They helped, but not very much. She was like in a hostel anyway, and she came to. I tell you how she went to Switzerland. The partisans helped some of the Jewish people, and she put 2 changes of clothes on, and they took her, not only her, a group of people over the mountains into Switzerland. Illegally over the mountain. Then obviously the Swiss put them up in. And anyway, in 45, she came, as far as I know, on some sort of illegal ship to Palestine. And the British people caught the ship and put them all up again in Atlit.
Yeah. Atlit, that was
Atlit was
near Akko. They put them in a.
Atlit is before Haifa.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't know what would you call it, a camp. I don't know. The illegal immigrants. They put them all up there. And my father remembered the young man whom he helped. And by that time, he was David Chartier, who was a big knob in the army, in the government. So my father went to David Chartier, and he reminded him, and David Chartier got my grandmother out.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Slach mecha al pnei hamayim, berov hayamim timtzaenu. Have you heard of that one? That's what happened.
It's amazing.
But everyone's got some little stories like this. I can carry
Mrs.
on
Halberstadt,
forever.
can I just ask, being in Tel Aviv, when you heard that the war had started, when did you start hearing about what was going on with the Yidden? What was happening to the Yidden? With the Shoah or the camps? Did you hear anything when you were?
Yeah, this is what I told you as soon as you came. Because I was so young, I don't think I took as much interest as older people were doing. That's why I said I don't look upon myself as a Holocaust survivor, because I didn't suffer personally. I really didn't. A doctor told my mother in Milan once, she's an uncomplicated little Jewish girl. Obviously we suffered. Obviously my life would have turned out differently, I expect, had we stayed all our lives there. But I can't say, looking back, I can't say I had any hardship or...
But can I ask, when you were growing up in Tel Aviv, and in the 40s, the early 40s, when the war was happening, and did your family know what was going on in Europe?
I'm sure they did. But I told you, in those days, parents didn't tell children. I mean...
When did you first really hear about what was happening with the camps and the Shoah? Was it after the war?
If I had known then, but one day you'll ask me, when did I hear about it, I would have written it down. I don't know.
And did you find out what happened with the extended family, the family that didn't leave?
Now let me think.
Who couldn't leave?
Yeah, I took it. A sister of my father was taken away. She was still in Germany with her husband. They were taken away only a few weeks before the end of the war in Germany.
And they didn't.
But if you ask me when I heard it, I don't know.
And did they never survived?
No,
Aye.
they didn't. And who else was there? And literally a few weeks before the end of the war.
Were they in hiding?
I don't
One
think
doesn't
so.
even know.
I don't know. How was it?
And this family from Milan, that a few days after, let's say, Rosh Hashanah, that couldn't get into Switzerland. Do you know what happened to them?
No, I actually don't know.
What's sad is there were quite a few.
But there were a few families there where we were also.
There were Jewish families from Italy that were also deported.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
oh yes.
So your father had the chokhmah to leave.
Yeah, he was a very wise man. Looking back on things, you know, and nothing to do with the Holocaust may not interest you, but when eventually they came here.
Your parents.
Yeah.
And your siblings.
Eventually, again, nothing to do with the Holocaust. Eventually he went back to his old job in Italy, was there 17 years, and when he retired from there, they came here. They didn't go back to, don't ask Israel then. Don't ask me why my sister nearly had a nervous breakdown. I had a brother and sister in Israel.
And Mrs. Halberstadt, can I just ask you, do you remember when the state was formed in 48?
Oh yes, and how do I remember? Again, the cautious father, we must have been the only one. He was very strict with us and very loving. We adored him always. 1948, everyone was out celebrating, but not the Wurzmann children. You don't go where there are crowds.
Really?
He didn't let us go.
But you must have still been very happy. It was you must have been it was momentous. It was
It was terrible. I'm the youngest, so I've got an older son, the brother was there, an older sister, and they were not allowed to go out. And
Right.
I mean, he didn't tie them to the string to the house, right? But he said, "You're not to go. You don't go without crowds."
And during the War of Independence,
My brother joined the Haganah behind my father's back.
behind your father's back.
Yeah, but then obviously he knew he was wounded also. And everyone, all the chevra, all the friends knew that he was wounded, apart from us. We didn't know. They didn't tell us. That was in independence where there wasn't always this communication.
And what were you doing during the war in 48?
What did I do from which point of view?
What did you continue?
I think there was school. In Israel there was no more school. I mean, there was no, apart from that short time when the Germans bombed, it was normal school.
And during the War of Independence in 1948?
What, do you want to know if there was school or what?
Well, what did you do? Did you...
I mean, how old was I then? I was too young to go in the army or anything like this. What did I do? You're still a young man. When you get to my age, you get very forgetful.
I also get forgetful.
You get very
But
forgetful.
Mr. Halberstadt, do you remember it was difficult? There was food rationing also. It wasn't so simple during
Yeah, there
those
was
times.
food rationing. There was food. Not my mother used to go 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to the butcher with her card, to see if there's anything left. There was food rationing. But we didn't starve. We didn't starve.
And were your parents happy that they came to Eretz Israel?
I'm sure they were. I'm sure they
Did
were.
you ever go to Bnei Brak? Or did you ever...
Well, my sister ended up living in Bnei Brak, but that was in later years. At the time, tell you what, at the time, now it comes back, there was the British people were there. They had curfew. Tel Aviv was on curfew. You know about that? And I remember the whole week was curfew. And I remember that we lived near, not far from the main road coming into Tel Aviv, from Bnei Brak. And I remember Friday afternoon, the curfew must have been lifted around about that time. I remember we saw lots of lorries queuing up trying to bring food to Tel Aviv after the curfew was, for Shabbat. I remember that. And during the curfew, my brother ran across the road to the Makolet. You know what a Makolet is, don't you?
Grocery.
Which he wasn't really allowed to do, but he was okay. He got away with it. Yeah, there was shortage of food. But we survived. We survived. I don't know whether it's my generation. I think with me, we look at life differently. Like the other day I was speaking to Shulamit and Benny about, some money I thought should have been ours, but it wasn't. It didn't come our way. Never mind why. But I said to them, am I starving? Am I short of anything?
So true.
All right, so I didn't get it.
And Ms. Halberstadt, can I just ask, when did you first hear about what was, after the war, what happened in Europe? Do you remember your parents discussing, or it was in the news, what had happened in Germany and what happened in Poland with the camps? Because that was a very big deal. There was a...
I can't give you exact date. I can't remember. I can't remember when, what. Things were discussed at home, yes, but there is something else. It's got nothing to do with the war, more with the generations. I told you about my mother having 2 full-time helps in Milan, right? They were comfortable, I'm sure. And when she came to Tel Aviv, she rolled her sleeves up. What should she do when we came? Did the laundry like this, cooked on a paraffin stove, right? But I can't ever remember her complaining, moaning, grumbling. You just got on with life.
And you decided to do teachers training?
I went to teachers training college.
Where was that? In
Tel Aviv. And at that time there was a shortage of teachers, so they didn't give us summer holidays. We had to carry on during the summer, and then we started teaching Hanukkah time. And I was teaching, my first year of teaching was outside Tel Aviv. Where was it? Anyway, I still got photographs of this. And there was a lovely little boy in the class, really sweet. His name was Shalom. So I still remember his red cheeks, but was he a devil? And one day, I was a new teacher, my first year of teaching. One day I went like this to him, he got it. The next day I was called to the headmaster's office. And I was trembling. I thought, my goodness, what's happening now? It's because of that. And there were the parents of the boy. I was trembling even more. Thank you so much what you did. Do it more often. He was such a good boy at home in the afternoon after that.
Sure. Wow.
nothing to do with the Holocaust because of teaching, because I came here as a teacher, I told you before.
The Sochnut sent you?
Here I taught in Hasmonean High School for girls. And today, quite a few of my friends today are ex-pupils of mine from here. Quite a few.
And did you meet?
I enjoyed it.
Did you meet Rabbi Schoenfeld when you came here?
Did I meet Rabbi Schoenfeld? One day Rabbi Schoenfeld asked me, how much are you earning? How much do you get? I mean, I was employed by them. I said to him, £9 a week. My dear girl, you cannot live on £9 a week. You'll get £10. He was special. Was he special? There's not enough recognition.
I totally agree.
There really isn't. It's not right. But he didn't do it for the credit. I tell you what he did. He walked all the way to London Airport. You know about it because you know.
He walked all the
to London Airport to catch an aeroplane. Motzei Shabbos. He had to go to some big meeting, which allocated money for institutional, I don't know, to help him,
It's amazing. He had schools and he brought children over.
Oh, yeah.
I met Blanca Stern, who he brought over from Vienna, her and the family.
Yeah. He did.
And after the war, he brought.
There really isn't enough. I don't think there's enough recognition of what he did. He came to my wedding.
He came to your wedding?
Yeah. And it wasn't a wedding like you have today.
So can I ask,
But it was very nice.
Where did you meet your husband?
Here, no Shotchen, here in the Chevra, from Chevra, and then we didn't do anything more. On a Sunday afternoon, we often went out to the country together, boys and girls, all from. I don't know whether you heard of Rabbi Munk. Was the rabbi here? He gave a mixed shiur on Friday night. To boys and girls, not in his house, so there wasn't a big crowd, but there were boys and girls, a mixed shiur. And in that chevra I met my husband. Oh, and one day, I don't even think we communicated specially. I know you had mixed shiur, but you didn't go home together. But one day, Gildersgreen, you know where Gildersgreen station is? I was walking in Finchley Road one way, and he was coming the other way. And I was brought up to say hello to people whom you know. And we said hello to each other. I don't know what happened after that. I can't even remember him proposing like to do today.
Wow. And your parents came, and your brother and sister came for the chasana?
You want to know that? Have enough.
You don't want it.
I mean, this is nothing. Again, I told you about the diamond business. Did I tell you that Indians didn't allow export of diamonds anymore? And that was the main income at the time, exporting to India. And the Indian government didn't want Mamani to leave the country anymore, so they stopped import of diamond. That's when the business came to an end. The income came to an end for my father, so he wasn't going to come to the wedding. Again, he was not in the end, because my husband's parents, who also came because of the Holocaust from Germany, right here, they had a boarding house.
And they came before the war?
They were on their way to Montevideo. They got permission. They were on the way to Montevideo, and the way the journey went, they got stuck in England. Again, Mina Shemayim. I wouldn't have meant it otherwise.
It's all Mina Shemayim.
So where was I? Yes, so my father said he's not going. So they said they can't come for a wedding to Israel. Again, it's Hakol min hashamayim, yeah, everything. They can't come. So in the end, they decide my mother was going to come, my father wasn't going to come. And I had good friends, but older people. I was like a butt bite there. I didn't live with them, but they were very nice to me, very kind. In those days, it wasn't telephone or emails, all went by letter. And they wrote letters that prevailed on my father he should come also. So he gave in and he came. And that was Min HaShamayim, because on the way back back to Israel, they went via Holland, where the head office was of the company he was the agent for, and he got his old job back. And they went back to Italy after that.
And did your brother and sister also come to the Chasana? Your brother and sister, they came to the Chasana?
No, they couldn't afford it.
It was very expensive in those days.
But you know, again, in brackets, I don't know who's going to listen to all that. It's nobody's business.
It's so important.
You know, today, this doesn't exist. Can't afford.
I know. But in those days,
they couldn't afford it. They didn't come. And obviously, I wasn't happy. I obviously didn't jump over the moon that they didn't come. But you accepted things. But today, even they go collecting. There was a wedding not the other day, a year or two ago. Family really, they didn't have the means. In the end, the whole big 10 of them went to America to a wedding, money which was collected. Is that right? It's very nice. If people want to give, why not? Yeah, but we shouldn't have this way of life. I want, I get.
Sure.
That's what it's like today. I want, I have.
And Mrs. Halberstadt, can I ask? But I agree with you. I really do agree with you. Can I just ask, Mrs. Halberstadt, when you speak to your children and grandchildren, what answer do you give? What advice do you give to your... I'm sure you want to impart a message to your children and grandchildren.
I had a birthday the other day, you can work it out, and didn't want anything, didn't want any fuss. I'll tell you, our 60th wedding anniversary, I didn't think it was anything special. I thought it was normal. I thought it was normal. Anyway, okay. Anyway, so then they arranged a little get together, but I can't get the whole family together. Impossible. It was only the English people here, and they got ready. It was on a Sunday afternoon. They got ready things that I always say, apparently. And after that, so many of them came up and said, "Oh, we've got many more we can add." So they're collecting some more now for the 70th birthday. That's what I always say.
So no one is. Can you mention some of them? If you can mention it, it's wonderful. Wow, it's so special.
Nobody's perfect, I say. I'm also not perfect.
Okay.
You have to take them all as they come. Yeah, that's something I always told my kids about their children. They didn't ask to be born. What advice? This is not advice. Nothing makes me happier than seeing my kids together.
It's wonderful. It's so true.
Here, there you are.
We lived a modest lifestyle, but I never felt deprived.
Never.
And that's so important.
I had a wonderful life.
So
in a simple way. We didn't go to hotels or...
But you were happy. You were happy, and...
I didn't appreciate what I had. I had a wonderful husband.
And I just want to show, this is a picture of your dear husband. And you were married for over 60 years?
Just over 60 years. And then after this get together, which I did, the 61, I said I'm looking forward to the 7th ship.
Hashem always helps.
They collected the thing.
Oh, this is so nice. Ms. Halberstadt, can you show the picture of your dear husband? If you can turn the picture.
He was a good.
Can I have a look? You can see, very special. And you have such a special mishpacha. You can be so proud. Your mishpacha is
I'm not proud, I'm grateful.
very grateful.
I'm
But
not
you
proud, I'm
must be proud
grateful.
as well, because it is a very special
They're
mishpacha.
good. They all are good.
So I just want to
And
thank
I'm
you.
not, I think I have something like that also. Here, there you are. We never did anything like that. Ugh.
Baruch Hashem for Emunah. Wow, this is so beautiful. Mrs. Halberstadt, I just want to.
That's what I said today. Today it's all modern times.
Oh, so this is.
It's a different
it's
culture.
wonderful.
The young people have got a different culture, different way.
So, Mrs. Halberstadt, I just want to thank you very, very much. And I feel so privileged being in your home and meeting you, and knowing that
He didn't even make a bracha of it.
it's so special. But hearing your story, it's very special.
But
and you have a very special family, and you can be so proud.
I'm not proud. I'm grateful.
You're grateful.
I'm not proud. It's not. I had nothing to do.
It's a zchut of your parents as well. It's a zchut, and it's min hashamayim. And you had miracles that your father decided to leave on Erev Rosh Hashanah.
Can you imagine?
So many people would say, well, let's go after Rosh Hashanah.
Well, that's what the other family did.
And then they couldn't get into Switzerland. That's min hashamayim.
Everything is Minashamayim.
So you should just have nachas and good health and maybe
Everyone should.
Everyone and
Everyone should.
and just be well and have just mazel and bracha. And thank you so much. I so appreciate it.
I don't, but it's true what I said. I didn't help you much with Holocaust stories because I don't feel I'm a product of the Holocaust.
No, but you know that you left from Milan. It's a very big thing. There were families that couldn't, and unfortunately they were deported.
Yeah.
So it's all min hashamayim and Baruch Hashem. We have to be.
I told you about my grandmother walking over the mountain and I've still got one cousin in America, and I rang him up the other day because my grandfather ended up in Mantua. Have you heard of Mantua?
Montreux.
Mantua in Italy. In the Middle Ages, a lot of Gedolim lived there. He ended up in an Jewish old age home in Mantua. That's in Italy. Not all that far from Venice, on the way. So why was he in Mantua? Why did she go to Switzerland? I couldn't work it out. And my cousin told me that he couldn't have walked it. He had problem with the legs. So that's probably he was sent to this old age home in Mantua. And I guess nobody can tell me today that they said they haven't got room for two, and she had to go over them to Switzerland.
It's unbelievable. Oh, thank you so much.
I don't know if it helped you at all.
It's just very precious what you've told me, and I so appreciate it.